The 1970s, a decade of bell-bottoms, disco, and wait, were we really allowed to do that? Get ready to have your mind blown as we count down 10 things that were totally normal in the 70s but could get you slapped in handcuffs today. Grab your popcorn, crank up the Zeppelin, and let's get started. 10. Drinking age of 18. Remember when you could legally drink at 18? The 1970s saw states like California and New York setting their drinking age at 18, offering youth freedoms at bars and parties, no ID stress. If you were 18, you could vote, join the army, and sign contracts, so a beer seemed natural. These were hubs where youth socialized and danced. However, this changed as the 70s closed and 80s opened with growing awareness of drunk driving dangers. Accidents involving young drivers increased, spurring demand for stricter laws. The game changer? The 1984 National Minimum Drinking Age Act, led by groups like MAD. This law forced states to raise the drinking age to 21 or face losing 10% of their federal highway funds. With budgets at stake, states fell in line. Today, 21 is the norm nationwide, and it makes you wonder, what once normal dangers did we overlook? Let's shift gears and discover together. 9. Freewheeling fireworks. Remember buying firecrackers at the corner store? Today, those fireworks are illegal in most states, risking hefty fines or even jail. In the 70s, you could buy M80s and cherry bombs without an ID check. Setting them off in the streets was a dangerous free-for-all. Neighborhood kids created makeshift battlegrounds every 4th of July. While sparklers were common, some dared to use riskier explosives. M80s were unregulated, despite their injury potential. Today, that explosive enthusiasm means serious legal trouble. Many states criminalize even possessing certain fireworks, leading to fines or jail. The crackdown followed growing injuries and fires from unregulated use. Emergency rooms were overwhelmed and property damage soared. Safety regulations tightened, making permits mandatory for public displays. So next time you see a pro-fireworks show, recall the wild 70s when things were explosive and unsafe. Speaking of things that went up in smoke, 8. Advertising tobacco to minors. Ever seen cigarette ads on TV or in newspapers? If not, it was once very common. In the 1970s, tobacco companies heavily promoted brands like Marlboro and Camel, using attractive models and cartoon figures to target young viewers. It was legal to market cigarettes to teens using vibrant colors and slogans to make smoking seem cool, associating it with independence and athleticism. Remember the Marlboro Man, a symbol of freedom? Or Joe Camel, designed to appeal to kids? In fact, Joe Camel was more recognizable to young children than Mickey Mouse. These tactics drove high smoking rates among teens and young adults. Now, strict federal laws ban tobacco ads targeting minors. TV, magazines, and online platforms have rules protecting youth from harmful messaging. This change was gradual. Public health campaigns highlighted smoking's dangers, linking it to lung cancer and heart disease. Groups like the American Lung Association pushed for stricter rules, and lawsuits exposed the industry's deceptive tactics. Today, tobacco advertising is heavily regulated, and smoking isn't seen as glamorous. 7. Child labor. Back in the 70s, kids working was common. Farms, stores, even delivering newspapers. Some places allowed children as young as 12 to work short hours, since rules were looser. Many families relied on the income, and work built responsibility. Small farms depended on kids during harvests. Stores hired them to stock shelves. Newspaper routes gave kids their own money. However, this child labor had costs. Long hours, low wages, hazardous conditions. In textile factories, young children worked long hours for meager pay. They lost education because work conflicted with school. Exploitation was high, safeguards were few. Now, federal law set age limits and work hours. The Fair Labor Standards Act requires kids to be at least 14 for most jobs. This shift came from concern for kids and the importance of education. Activists and labor unions pushed for protections. Today's system prioritizes education and protects kids, helping them grow and learn. This really takes us back, doesn't it? Hold on tight, because our final 70s norm will boggle your mind. Stay tuned till the end. 6. CB radio interference. Before iPads, it was all about CB radios. Remember those in your car? Did you know modifying them could mean fines or jail today? The FCC didn't mess around. In the 70s, the FCC turned a blind eye to radio communication. CB radios became a cultural phenomenon for truckers and hobbyists. The airwaves crackled with jargon, creating a unique subculture. Popular movies like Smokey and the Bandit romanticized CB culture. However, They also caused problems, some illegally boosted signals, interfering with emergency broadcasts and air traffic control. This threatened public safety, prompting the FCC to crack down. The FCC has grown, making new policies to promote growth. Fines for interfering with licensed radio communications can be hefty, and repeat offenders can face jail. So remember that tinkering can have some serious consequences. Now, after all these communications, time for wild cats. 5. Owning exotic pets without permits. If you're from the 70s, you might know folks who owned exotic pets. Many families had large snakes, wild cats, or monkeys. Regulations were few, permits rare. Some even kept cobras or tigers as status symbols. The exotic pet trade thrived, fueled by fascination and unawareness of care challenges. Pet stores sold colorful parrots and reptiles, appealing to those seeking wild companions. However, reality hit hard. Exotic pets need specialized diets, housing, and vet care, which many couldn't provide. Over time, safety and animal welfare concerns brought to controls. Stories surfaced of escapes, attacks, and neglect, raising awareness. Animal welfare groups campaigned for stricter rules, highlighting ethical issues. Now, strict rules and permits govern exotic pet ownership. Authorities ensure proper care and public safety. Many states ban dangerous species. Those allowed to keep exotics face inspections and requirements for housing and feeding. This reflects changed attitudes toward wild pets. 4. No helmet motorcycle rides. Can you imagine riding a motorcycle without a helmet? In the 70s, it was common, even legal. Wind in your hair. Open road. The helmetless biker was a 70s icon, symbolizing freedom and rebellion. Many felt helmets were a sign of weakness, infringing on personal choice. However, the lack of helmets led to dire consequences. Motorcycle accidents often caused severe head injuries, disabilities, or death. Now, riding without a helmet can get you a ticket. Many states have mandatory helmet laws, credited with saving lives and reducing injuries. Still, riders argue these laws infringe on their freedom. The debate continues, some pushing for universal laws, others for individual choice. After all these rides, let's talk about a classic and very common one. 3. Hitchhiking across state lines. Remember sticking out your thumb for a ride? In the 70s, hitchhiking was common, symbolizing freedom and cheap travel. Travelers stood roadside with signs hoping for a lift. It was popular among young people exploring on a budget, a rite of passage rejecting mainstream life. The open road beckoned. However, as safety concerns grew, laws changed. Reports of violence against hitchhikers and drivers increased, along with concerns about drug trafficking. Many states now ban or restrict hitchhiking, citing safety. The rise of serial killers like Ted Bundy, who targeted hitchhikers, added to the fear. Picking up a hitchhiker today can mean legal trouble for both of you. Penalties vary, but include fines, arrest, even jail. Drivers can be liable if the hitchhiker is hurt or commits a crime. The decline reflects fear of risk. In a world of security cameras, trusting strangers seems unimaginable. Let's move from that safety fact back then. 2. Open alcohol containers. Do you remember carrying a beer openly? In the 70s, open container laws were loosely enforced. In cities like LA, strolling with a beer was normal. Parks and beaches became impromptu drinking spots. This relaxed attitude reflected valuing personal freedom. Tailgating involved open alcohol, and festivals had beer gardens. However, as concerns over public safety and impaired driving grew, laws tightened. Alcohol-related incidents prompted action. Awareness campaigns highlighted drunk driving dangers. Now, in many cities like NYC, open containers are illegal. California bans them in vehicles and on sidewalks. These laws ensure safer spaces. Penalties vary, but can include fines or even jail. Even empty containers can be a violation. This reflects stricter alcohol rules and focus on public safety. So time has come for our most shocking fact, which was completely legal and extremely dangerous. 1. Drunk driving with high BAC limits. So in the 70s, many states permitted drivers to have a BAC of 0.1 or even 0.15. This is the equivalent of 5 to 6 pints of beer. This meant more drivers were on the road with significant alcohol levels in their blood. The higher limits contributed to more accidents and risky driving behavior. People would drive home from bars and parties after consuming several drinks, often with little regard for the potential consequences. The attitude toward drunk driving was often nonchalant, and many people viewed it as a minor offense rather than a serious crime. Advertisements even promoted drinking and driving with slogans like "Don't be a square, have another drink." Today, such ads would be unthinkable. However, the devastating consequences of drunk driving became increasingly apparent. Statistics show that alcohol-related crashes were a leading cause of death and injury on American roads. Today, almost every state enforces a 0.08 BAC limit for drivers. The stricter limits and improved safety laws have reduced alcohol-related accidents. Public awareness about the dangers of drunk driving has grown, making our roads safer and saving lives. Organizations like MAD played a pivotal role in raising awareness and advocating for stricter laws. Their campaigns highlighted the devastating consequences of drunk driving, sharing personal stories of victims and calling for tougher penalties for offenders. The result is a society where drunk driving is widely condemned and subject to severe legal consequences. Drivers who are caught driving under the influence face arrest, fines, license suspension, and even jail time. So there you have it. A wild ride through the 70s, where the laws were looser and the consequences, well, sometimes there weren't any. Which of these shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more trips down memory lane. Just maybe leave the M80s at home.